You do not have to be this precise with lining up your markers every time, but I'll tell you what, if you're trying to draw and you have to dig through that bag every single time you need a color, it's going to be really frustrating. All right, I need some forms to play with, so everybody take a sheet of marker paper. And let's draw about 6 forms. If you want to trace your prior forms, you can, but we don't need to spend time with that. Just get yourself a couple of cones, maybe. A couple of cubes. Some spheres. The spheres are especially off today. That's more better. Maybe some cylinders. Cylinders are always nice to shade and draw, right? There's a lot of things that turn out to be cylindrical in the world. So we talked about the separation between light and shade. Basically, the light is going to be the true color. And your highlight is going to be a tint of that, which is mixed with white, right? And then your shadows, in general, is going to be done with your gray markers still. But it could be that you're adding blue, or that you're going with a deeper shade, right? That's where we get the term shade from. Is this something we would use down here in the shadow? Usually you're going to be using the grays. Which gray are you going to use? It depends on where this lies in terms of value. So color has an inherent value already built in, right? So yellow, for instance, lies higher on the value scale than blue does, right? Red is down here somewhere. It depends on what kind of red. That magenta red was really a lot deeper, or mahogany red, right? It was a lot deeper than, say, process red. So mahogany would be down lower on the value scale if this was black. And then these got lighter and lighter as they went up, right? The problem with shading something of going into our shadow area with a darker color, if I go into there, say I'm coloring this in process red, and I go into crimson red, because crimson red is darker than process red, which as I squint out, I'm not really sure. They seem to be about the same. Let's say that I'm going to do orange and yellow, right? That I'm coloring this in orange. Let's start with that. Let's take our yellow and take the deco yellow. I'm going to say my highlight is going to be deco yellow. So I'm coloring the light side of that with my highlight color. Then I'm going to go to my light color, which is going to be my yellow orange. I'm going to leave a streak of the yellow out here in front. So you can see that. Now, if I wanted my streak to go all the way up to the point here, like I do in my examples, then I have my Prismacolor markers, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here I'm always, when I'm making a drawing, going to have a swatch sheet on the side where I can experiment. I'm going to say, well, maybe I want to go with white in that and make it lighter. What happens if I go white over that and put a streak of white? Is it going to lighten it up too much? My other option would be to take a really light yellow. Here I have a cream color pencil. What does that do on there? That's even nicer, right? And it looks closer to this over here. Let's take one step more. Let's go to Canary Yellow. I can't really see Canary Yellow coming lighter. Canary seems to be almost the same as this. Let's go here and see what this does. This actually is closer to that, isn't it? This is my ochre. Guessing this is probably going to match it. Spanish orange. Yeah, looks like my Spanish orange matches my yellow marker pretty well. What is this called? Oh, Spanish orange marker. Look at that. I got a Spanish orange marker and a Spanish orange pencil. Well, I guess they're both made by Prismacolor, so that was meant on purpose. All right, I've decided on the cream. I'm going to take the cream. I'm going to draw this line a little bit better and a little bit straighter. I'm going to get myself a highlight in there the way I want it to work. If I wanted to blend it a little bit, I could even go softly over this edge here, maybe a little bit, and soften my highlight so it kind of blends in very gently. I have my pencils divided into cools and warm tones. Okay, if I go into the shadow here and I look at my orange, what's going to happen is it's going to scream out. It's very intense. So I have hue, value, and saturation. I can't have a high saturation of color in my shadow. I need to desaturate it, right? So what are my choices? What am I going to do about that? Well, I can maybe take a brown over top of it, or maybe I want to go a brown next to it, actually. What are my brown options here? Looks like my goldenrod, my sand, my light tan, any of those might work. So I'm going to take this orange swatch here. I'm going to put goldenrod next to the yellow orange. I'm going to put goldenrod over top of the orange and see which color I like better. I also could take goldenrod and lay it down there, and I could take this yellow, either the cream or the Spanish orange, and I could draw over top of that to make it a little bit more yellow if I wanted higher saturation. I think goldenrod's going to be my guy, but let's check this sand here too. I think the light tan's going a little too far. Sand is softer, but it kind of seems too soft. Sand actually might work as my reflected light tone, and goldenrod might work as my shadow core. Let's just give it a shot and see what happens. That's pretty nice, actually. I'm going to come back to my lighter one, my sand. I'm going to pull my goldenrod across it just like I did when I was blending before. I also have the option of drawing that whole thing in the yellow orange, let's say. And then coming to the right side with the gray. So if I'm going to do gray, I see that yellow is up here in the higher. So I'm not going to go more than like 30%. I'm going to try my 30%. In the shadow area. Maybe I want to put that on the table while I'm at it. Now let's try a 50% on top of that to see what our shadow core looks like. Getting a little bit soupy in there. I probably should slow down a little bit and let it dry. It's a different kind of look, right? You can tell this is much cooler in the shadow than that one is. What happens if I take 70 down on the table? Please don't just watch this demo. You guys need to be playing with your markers, seeing what works for you, trying some things out. You go 70 back to 50. I can, when this dries, take my white pencil here and help this ragged edge. It's not a great idea to use this very much, but once in a while, I'll come in here and I'll just sort of give my edges a little assist and clean them up with a white. Well, that's only 30. Well, let's try a 50-30 and see what that shadow looks like. I do want to contrast here, definitely. So I want to look at it and I want to make sure that what's happening on the table is showing that edge. It's not bad with the 50-30. I kind of like this yellow to brown. I definitely don't want to do this, right? I don't want to go orange into that. So if I wanted an orange brick, maybe I would say, let's do it on a sphere. That'll be more fun. Let's say there's going to be a highlight over there. I want you guys to experiment with this with all your colors and figure out there's going to be the light on this side, right? The true color of this sphere is going to be where the light is. Then I need to drop into shadow. Should I go into browns with that, I wonder? Or should I go towards the mahogany? No way, mahogany's not going to look good. I think I got to go into brown on that too. but probably going to have to be a darker brown, something maybe up into this color here. This is my light umber. What if I use light umber and goldenrod? I'm going to start with goldenrod over here because that's kind of like using my 30%. I think my reflected light on that orange is going to look really nice with the goldenrod. Maybe not, who knows? It could be that I need to go over there and look at putting some pencil over top of it or mixing it in. So I'm going to go off my page. I'm going to get some goldenrod going here. Get some umber laying next to it. Get some orange laying next to that. I feel like I need more orange over here. So my question is, am I going to take the orange like this and then lay the goldenrod over it like I did right there? Or am I going to take this and an orange pencil and kind of go backwards on it and work to saturate this over here a little bit with a cross contour motion? That's kind of nice, brings in some orange. I'm doing optical mixing now. I'm pumping some orange into my brown because I feel like I want my brown to be more orange over here in the shadow. Still haven't resolved my shadow core issue over there. So probably I want to take up over here something. Now my 30% is not going to do anything over there. So I'm probably going to have to start with my 50. And the way that I know that is I'm over here in yellow. Orange is going to be lower on this than orange is, right? Sorry, orange is going to be lower on this than yellow is. So if I'm working with reds or blues, I'm probably going to have to start with my 70s or even my 90s to get anything to show up over here in the side of a shadow. So I'm going to take this 50, I'm going to make a line on that, and I like that. I think that looks pretty good. So I'm actually going to go over here with a 50% core. I'm going to lay that at the line between light and shadow. It's not taking as well as I'd like it to, and that's because I already laid down some of this orange. So if you lay pencil down, know that it's going to get waxy, and it's not going to take the marker as well after that. So probably best to go with your pencils at the end. Probably impossible to maintain that rule all the time. It's possible. Sometimes I need to do this to get the pencil out of it. So the waxy pencils will get stuck in your marker. Maybe I want to go with kind of a brown tone over here and blend this out. From brown to orange. Since I've already gone pencil, I'm going to go back to pencil. Let that come a little bit darker. Take my orange and blend a little bit there. If I squint out, I'm making sure this is desaturated over here and also that it's darker than that. I'm not sure that it's really darker than that, so I may even go with like another brown and take this a tone darker. Which means I have to do this a tone darker so that people see my core in there. It's good to get my pencil in there. It's also rounding it out. Of course, I need to cast a shadow on the table. I'm going to recommend that you unify all of your drawing by putting shadows in grays only. If you were to take and make your tabletop in a warm wood color, then you would sort of break that rule. But what I'd like you to do for this week for your color drawing is just keep doing the shadows the way that we taught you to do them last week. And go 70 to 50% in your gray markers. You really, really need a page of this experimental kind of stuff going on before you draw anything in real life, right? So if I'm looking at drawing something blue next week, and I come in here and I make blue lines, and I'm like, well, this blue is just much too dark for me. Like I want that to be my true color, so I want to have a highlight up on top. Then I need to start laying some of this blue down. See what happens when I lay white on top of it. Is that going to be a good highlight? Or do I want to look at some of these blues over here and make that my highlight? These are both called cerulean, so they're supposed to be pretty much, I think, about the same tone when you mark them down. You guys have already found that taking your marker and making a mark is a little bit different than laying a second mark over top of it. So see how I'm getting two different tones there? Same kind of thing if I take the pencil, right, and press lightly, or I press hard. I can take this pencil and blend in between these two. Sort of create a smoother transition if I want to, if I'm getting some streaks up here and I want to blend that out. I can certainly use that. I don't usually ever just use a pencil to make a mark because it looks sort of like crayon. It looks very childish and it makes this sort of waxy kind of finish where you see the white of the paper come through it. So this is what I use my Colorless Blender for. The Colorless Blender will melt the wax. It puts some mineral spirits into the wax of the paper and we'll kind of mix it up like that. You can also get your Colorless Blender all dirty with that blue, and you can come over here and you can do your blue highlight, possibly in that. I'm going to go ahead and lay some waxy pencil down here where I want my highlight. I'm going to blender it out. So I'm getting a bit of smoothness there. Then I want to take this marker and I want to wipe it on the back of my marker pad. So as you can see up here, I always take this after I've worked with it in a waxy pencil, and I write with it like this until it writes white again. And then I can use it as a colorless blender. Even though it's stained in blue, it's not going to draw in blue. But I don't really use my blender to blend the markers. I use it to blend the pencils. Now, over here, am I going to use one of my deeper blues? Is violet blue going to be appropriate for a shadow? It looks really saturated. I don't think it's really going to work over there unless I take some kind of a gray over top of it. How about this? Well, that's really, really black, right? The navy blue is so dark there. If I do this kind of a thing, if you imagine that cylinder with this as my shadow core, and this is my reflected light, it's not really going to work. So I'm going to have to figure something else out over here. So I think I'm going to take this all the way around the side into my shadow over here. And I think I'm going to have to go with my grays for my to knock down my reflected light. If I start with 30% gray over that, I'm not going to see a thing. So I'm going to go to 50. I'm going to see what happens over here off the drawing. Yeah, I do get a reaction out of that. So I'm going to take my 50, I think, over here for reflected light. And I'm going to go 70 for shadow core. And then I'm going to go back to the 50 to blend it. I might even go back with some of that blue, or I might take this blue pencil back over here if I want to make it look a little bit more blue over here in the shadow. I can lightly scumble across, something like that. If I squint at it, I'm taking out a lot of the information. So look at it through your eyelashes and you'll be able to see, for instance, if the value of one is darker than the other. Remember how I said I wasn't really sure if my crimson and my that's my crimson red, and this is my process red. If I lay them next to each other on the page like that, and I squint, and I cannot see this transition right here, then that means they're pretty much the same value. All right, so this one has a saturation of pink, it's a little more purpley, and this one is a little bit more like a stop sign red. But if I put them down and squint at them, I see they're pretty much the same along this value scale. So crimson and process next to each other are not going to turn a transition from light to shadow at all, right? My first thought is that I'm going to put the true color here, and I'm going to put a pink up on top. Which pink was more red? The other two were more orange than the blush, so I'm going to go with blush on top. It looks a little weird on top of that, right? It might be okay over here. We'll test that. I think it might be appropriate to have a pink spot in a circle. I even want a guideline on this, I think. Something I can work up to and see as I'm going around this time. Live and learn, right? So this might be all right here, but it's not really okay there. So I'm going to get some reds. I'm going to put down some blush. I'm going to check to see which ones look good. Kind of going to start with my poppy red because it seems to be close to that red. It's kind of a true red. If I barely brush over it, notice how that brings it closer to the red that's over here. I like that. I like it better. I'm always moving both my markers and my pencils in a cross contour motion. Now over here, I don't want something really saturated. What can I do? Let's take the crimson. Let's take the, what do you think, 50% should we start with? That's a 50. And this is a 70. Seems so dark. Can I bring it back? I don't really want it that dark. What happens if I put some magenta on top of it? Oh, nice. Magenta on top of 70% is kind of nice for me. So I'm going to lay down my red over here. Throw some 70 where I know it's going to turn from light to shadow and I want my shadow core. I'm going to take my 50 and I'm going to blend that out to the foot of the box. Making sure nothing in the shadow is as light as anything in the light, right? I don't want this to be as saturated or as light as anything over here. So I'm taking my 50 all the way to the corner. I can also map that out over here while I'm at it. If I wanted to put this in on the floor, this would be 50 out here, wouldn't it? Now look what happens down here. I've got 70 on the floor and I've got 70 on the brick and I can't even see the corner of it. That may be okay if someone looks closely, but I may want even more of a contrast. So I'm going to go up to my 90. I'm going to put an edge on it. I really want that to read out. Then I said I was going to take this magenta and I was going to draw over top of that because I just liked having the red in this area a little bit more. It also is blending it up nicely. That spot there, maybe I can get some kind of a pink and help it out. It's not going to be too dark. I need to go really light up there, don't I? Yeah, it helped. Just a little bit of a touch here and there with that kind of stuff, right? It's going to look like makeup on a bruise. It's not going to be really a good solution. Whiteout is never going to work either. Whiteout's going to really draw your eye to it. So it may be better just to go to the outside of that and redraw it nice and sharp. Pretty happy with that cube.